So welcome in everyone. We have our fourth and final session that Peter has been working on and sharing with us in terms of how you can use the LLMs and these new AI tools to help you in your day-to-day with the BDC. So what are we going to be talking about today, Peter?
Well, today is, in the boot camp world, we have a number of developers that have gone through coding boot camps, and all of them have some version of what would be called a capstone project. So today we're going to summarize pretty much everything that we've talked about into one final project that should make it easier for our BDC managers, our agents, our dealership managers, et cetera, to come up with a pretty neat solution that I only wish was available to me 30 years ago when I started my career. And it's a pretty interesting way of giving your employees the tools they need to be successful in their jobs.
Awesome. So are we going to be walking through slides today or
This
what?
is all hands-on. This is all what I would call lab format. So I've done a bunch of practicing. I've built a bunch of these, and some of them for my team, some of them for my kids. And then today we will be going through one that I've built for Volie as kind of a test. And then we'll actually build one custom GPT live that is based on some mock data for a dealership.
So to say this back in terms that I understand as a non-technical junkie, uh, what we're doing today, last time we spoke about keeping some of the scripts and prompts that would help you be able to, you know, rebuild, get ChatGPT or something to spit out what you need on a daily basis. But you kind of need to start from scratch each day, so to speak.
Yep,
Today, we're going to be talking about building your own friend, if you will, who lives in perpetuity, who will know your dealership, know your BDC, know your policies, etc., that you can ask without needing to start over each day. Is that
100%. Yep,
okay?
100%.
Well, good. Well, what do you say we get started?
Sure. I'll share my screen here and we'll get going. So you should be seeing ChatGPT in all of its glory. It says, "What's on your mind today?" So as we talked about in the first presentation, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Model. And the training data that these companies like Meta with Llama, like Claude, like OpenAI with ChatGPT, what they have done is they have gone through and they've given this LLM, the large language model, source data. And in a lot of cases, it's the public internet. So Google built its empire based on understanding what was on every page and ranking them in such a way and returning them to the user so that you get the best search results when you type in what's a great recipe for chicken tacos, for example. Well, when they started working on these LLMs, they did effectively the same thing. They gave the LLMs, or once they had the software developed and in prototype phase, et cetera, they started unleashing these LLMs to learn on the public internet and maybe some private internets or private networks, et cetera, but largely the public internet. And that is what we mean when we talk about a model. A model is simply a predefined set of trained data. And so it's going to spit out predictable responses, et cetera. Well, what ChatGPT and some of these others, but today we will be going through it on ChatGPT just so that you have a definitive, concrete how to out of today's session. What ChatGPT has done is given you the ability to effectively add on, bolt on functionality to those pre-trained models. It still uses a lot of the underlying business logic and a lot of the algorithms, et cetera, but it allows you to really curtail a custom GPT. Maybe it's a dealership specific based, maybe it's your dealer group based, maybe it's your kid's soccer team, maybe it's you have a recipe group or a book club or it doesn't matter. All of these are ways that you can effectively bolt on custom functionality and custom data to use the underlying ChatGPT framework, but based on your own data or a data set that you constrain. And like Jake said when he summarized, really, instead of for all of the 3 sessions prior to today, what we've really been talking about is giving you a prompt that you can then take and hand out to your people for them to be able to really confine what they're looking for. But that's kind of a pain. It's not very scalable. And ultimately, it doesn't allow you to control a lot of the parameters that that you might want your agents or your team leads or your, maybe it's a case of a service advisor, et cetera. And what we will be doing today is building a custom GPT where all they have to do is click on a link and they can get responses that are based on data that you've uploaded. And it allows you a much more scalable way of disseminating information in and amongst your team. And at the end, I'll go through a few clever ways that I've walked dealers through, and I've helped dealers build GPTs when I go out on site visits. A lot of people have been watching this series, and I get a lot of questions. Uh, if you don't ask questions on the webinar, when I come and see you, I can nearly promise that you're going to ask me questions, which is great. I love it. I love to help, and that's what we're here for. So today's will be ChatGPT, but understand that other of the LLMs allow you to do similar type functionality. And so if you look on the side here on the left-hand navigation, what you'll see is an expanded menu list. Now, I will tell you that fundamentally what we're going to be going through here is available on the paid ChatGPT platform. I don't know what functionality is available on non-paid in terms of generating custom GPTs, but I'll just walk you through. For me, I pay $20 a month for OpenAI, and that gets me all that I need. I use others as well, but that gets me all I need in terms of custom GPTs. So there's this GPTs link, and I'm going to walk you through this one that I've already done, but then we will also go through how to create a new one. So I click on the link. I'm going to have to get rid of this over here, maybe down here. And it is bringing me to this GPT that I've built using our staff directory, which I downloaded from our HR platform. You could create a Google Doc and export it as a CSV. It doesn't really matter, but just some way where you can get this data so that you can upload it. And then I've also uploaded a copy of our most recent employee handbook. We just had our annual summer meeting and we went through a new version of the handbook. And so I happen to have that. And I figured maybe this would be a fun tool, Jake, for our staff if they had any questions that they could ask they could effectively ask to our employee handbook. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to edit this GPT. And that's going to bring me into the editor mode, which is really where the power of this lies. And now I got to move this again. We're playing tag here. But I give it, the first thing I can do is I can give it an image. If I wanted to put our logo here or put something else here, maybe it's the Volie BDC .com, whatever it might be, I could put the logo here. I give it a name. So in this case, I've just given it a pretty descriptive name and then a description. So I've said, this provides a quick and easy way of interacting with the Volie company handbook. And then for the instructions, this is where you take all of what we've talked about with prompts and you can enter these here as a prompt. And so I've got these a little bit flipped and no really rhyme or reason. I haven't done an incredible amount of testing on this handbook, but I suspect that it won't matter what order I have them in. Sometimes the order does matter. So this is the persona pattern. Act as an HR expert to answer any questions employees might have. Pretty simple. And then here I've given it a combination of a few patterns, but by and large, I'm telling it to only use data that I have uploaded. So I don't want it making stuff up. I don't want it to what would be classically referred to as hallucinating, which is giving you a grammatically correct response that's totally wrong. And I want to give it a little bit of context. And for this, I said for the CSV file, which you can see I've uploaded right here, I've told it what it is and what it includes. And the reason I did that is because as I started testing it without giving it those instructions, it was trying to go to the handbook for some items, and there's a list of editors in our handbook and some maybe citations, and it was finding employee data there, and it was maybe mixing and matching, and I didn't want it to do that. So I gave it this parameter. For the CSV file, it is a list of employees, their departments, manager, etc. Conversation starters. You can really put a lot of things here. This is a way for you to maybe prompt it. You can give it a little bit of a personality, but this is how it's going to start the conversation. And we can just put in here if you have questions on the handbook or our org chart. And it's going to start that right here. So you can also put examples. How So when the user is using these, all they have to do is just click on them and it will automatically start that prompt out. So that's what those are doing. So then down here, this is the knowledge section. This is where I'm going to give ChatGPT this custom data. And our handbook is not out on the internet, nor is our staff directory. So these are two pieces of data, source data, that ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama don't have full access to. They're not on the public internet. But I've given them here. And the reason I've given them here is so that we can ask questions about it. But I've got our employee handbook, the latest version, and I've got this CSV sheet that has all of the personnel in Volie, their department, their hire date, etc. Next thing I do is I tell it what model I want to use. So here is where you can um, you can start the user off by using the different models. And let's talk just a minute about these models. The models are classified by their power and their version. And there is really no standard across the different LLMs. Llama uses, they call them by the number of parameters that they have, the number of training parameters that they're based on. So Llama's largest model is 400 billion training parameters, which is a lot of data. They're huge and they are very expensive to run. And then they have smaller data models. They have down to a 1 billion parameter model. ChatGPT, they name theirs a little bit differently, but they're usually their higher releases or their beta releases, which are not available to all users, are listed above their default, and their lower models or their smaller models vis-a-vis their cheaper or potentially free models are listed below. Their default today, as of this writing, as of this webinar rather, July 2nd, 2025, in case this age is not appropriately on the internet, is GPT-4o. So this is a very good general purpose model. Could you get away with lesser models for this particular task? Absolutely. And if all of your users, maybe they're on a free plan that has limited credits or something like that, you could have this recommend a lower model. And then you have capabilities. You've got web search. So in this case, since we've told it to only use the documents I've uploaded, I'm not going to enable web search. What this would do is it would allow ChatGPT to use what it knows about the web and what it can find out on the public internet and collate it or effectively combine it with the data that you've uploaded in these files. In this case, I don't want it to do that. I want this to be a very specific internal tool that we can use. I won't get into Canvas in terms of what that is. Image creation, image generation. Do I want people to be able to generate pictures of puppies here? Probably not really. So I really don't care. And then code interpreter and data analysis. So this one is kind of a special thing. So this is going to allow ChatGPT to, behind the scenes, when you ask it a question about something that you've uploaded or something that you ask it, this is going to allow this particular custom GPT to write software programs behind the scenes to help it deal with what you're asking it for. And in the case of CSVs, and you can see that it has automatically let us know when I uploaded it that a CSV, it can't just use as free text. It's going to have to write software code in order to interpret that, which is no big deal. It'll do it behind the scenes, and you don't have to ask it. You don't have to tell it, write this code or write that code. It doesn't require you to do that. But what it is telling you is that for some of the data that you upload, it's not going to be able to just read it. It's going to have to write software code to do it, which at the end of the day, what it really means is that the response is simply going to take longer in some cases. Actions, candidly, I've never used actions, and I won't get into what they do, but it's not necessarily required for this project. If you have questions when I come and visit you, it's something we can definitely go through. I don't use them in any of the GPTs that I've built for our team or for other sort of projects, but they are something that you can use to generate these GPTs. And so I got to play tag with this again. I'm going to put it down here because we're done with that section. This auto updates, but you can also just force it to update. So based on all of the things that I've done here, now it gives you this little testing session. So let's try this out. And I've tested this a lot, but I've also made some changes here. So let this so I'm asking it a question about our org chart here. So there's only one Peter at Volie. So now it's going through, and in the background, we can see what it's doing. It's writing code. It's importing this sheet. You can see in the code that it generated an error here, but we won't worry about that because it's pretty good at finding those errors. So Peter Sperry reports to Scott Davis, and we can ask other questions. What is Liza's last name? So again, this is an internal tool. If you imagine that you could use this to help your employees find who to go talk to at the dealership, et cetera. So now I've asked it a bunch of questions on this particular CSV, and that's all cool. Let's talk about other things. I had a family member. So now I'm talking about the handbook. And it's giving me pretty specific responses based on this document. So again, this is not public domain data. This is data that is in our handbook. And that is an internal document at Volie. And so it's telling us exactly what those are. Talk about some other things. Maybe let's ask it a question that we don't think it'll know the answer to based on the handbook. So here, this is where your prompt is important. It is telling us that it could not find this in the source data. And the reason why we set it up this way is we disabled web search over here. So it's not going to go out and try to find any Jake. And we've also said you can only use the data contained in these documents. So if you were to provide this to your agents with these parameters, we would tell it, you don't want it making stuff up. You don't want it pulling, let's just say, the tires specials from discounttire.com. You want it to find your tire specials based on the vehicle provided. So this is one of the key areas where creating your own GPT here is is really, it really allows you to custom tailor the responses for your employees. So maybe Jake, we'll hit the pause button here and open the floor up for any questions on this little test project before we get into actually going through and building one of these that is maybe more appropriate for our BDCs.
Yeah, that's great. Let's take a pause for any questions that you guys have. Just to answer the question that's on everyone's mind, it is cookies and cream. Just undeniably, I think it's the best flavor. So I don't think there's any debate there. But that is what my favorite is. So I'm surprised it's not in the handbook, Peter.
You know, it seems like it should be codified there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is really slick. This is really neat, and I can see how it would help us in Volley, and I can see how it would help you at a dealership too, because your agent for one could just say, "Hey, what is our policy on rental cars, on loaners, right?"
Yep.
Um, but why don't we go ahead and jump to how they can build one?
Yep. So um, we will go back here and we're back at our homepage, for lack of a better word, on ChatGPT. So we can enter our GPTs here, and then up here. So I guess let's just take a second to this. Um, ChatGPT and a lot of these others effectively have, let's just call it an app store as a familiar analog. So they have companies that have built custom GPTs that use ChatGPT behind the scenes to leverage interesting data sets that they have on. So when you go to the GPT's, I don't know, for lack of a better term, App Store homepage here, it's going to list for you all of these different options that you can choose from. And some of these are paid, subscription, etc. Some of them are just out there for free, and you can use those. But where we're really interested in here is either My GPTs or Create. So I'm just going to go to My GPT, and it automatically creates a new one when I go to there so that I can kind of just start off. You can see here, here's my Volley handbook and staff. So we're going to create a new one from scratch. So you can see here that I've got nothing here predefined, and we're going to build this from scratch. And I've got this set of files here that I've put together in order to build this GPT. And so right here, I've got a fictitious agent training manual. Hopefully all of you have much better and more decisive and conclusive training manuals that you can provide to your agents. So that's that. I've got this list of dealership personnel. Again, this is fictitious, but here's my personnel at my hypothetical autoworldmotors.com dealership with their extensions, their department, and their name. So I've got those two, that file as well. We'll just close these down because I don't really need to see these again. And then I've got this document that we uh, put together just for some of our training data with our BDCs that we work with. And this is kind of a hypothetical. We talked in I think the second section or the second seminar about using this to provide script training, rebuttal training, etc. So this is a similar document that would list why you might need to do certain operations. And so with these three documents and a little prompting, we are going to build our custom GPT. And so you can see I've got 16 items on this sheet that I might want to have the agent um, have access to them. So we're going to call this our training. We're going to save the prompt for last, or second to last, maybe. Conversation starters, we won't do that, but here's where we want to be able to upload these files. And so I'll go here. And it's finished uploading them. No recommended model. We could choose GPT-4o, but we will just let it choose whatever. I don't want to do web search. I don't want to do Canvas, and I don't want image generation here. I just want these documents. So let's talk about this first. We're going to use the persona pattern. Again, it's one of my favorite patterns, probably the most common pattern I use. Okay, so let's talk about the prompt. You're an expert in helping to train automotive BDC agents or call center agents on answering customers' questions on the phone. I have uploaded documents that are to be used as your source data. You are only allowed to use these documents in your answers. The CSV uploaded is my current staff directory, which includes name, email, department, and direct inward dial number. And if we had other documents, or if we wanted to give specific context or prompting based on each of those documents, we could do so here. The LLM is pretty good at understanding when you upload a document that has staff on it and tell it that there's staff on it, it's pretty good at figuring out what fields map to which. So you don't usually need to bother with field mapping unless there's things that may be ambiguous. The second thing is it's going to fundamentally disregard the file name. So your file name isn't going to necessarily. Now, I've seen cases, remember in the first session, we talked about how these LLMs, they're not deterministic, meaning they have no fixed output for the same input. And as we've developed products using the LLM at Volie, it's been one of the biggest challenges that we've had is for a given phone call or a given set of circumstances, we want to confine and constrain the LLMs to have the same output every time. Otherwise, our users will get confused, our reporting will not be consistent, et cetera. So it's one of the biggest challenges that you have with LLMs is giving it enough boundaries so that it knows what arena and what sort of range you want your answers in. And file names are the same way. It doesn't necessarily use them, but that's not to say that I haven't seen in some cases where it's interpreted based on the file name. So I'll say that file names don't matter, but if it's going to use them and it just happens to, again, it's not deterministic. It doesn't hurt you to name them the appropriate things. The other thing it does is it would allow you, as you're building these prompts and building these custom GPTs, it will allow you to reference them rather than have just some random file name. It would allow you to reference them. So let's talk about something that I'm going to just search this. About file formats that you can use in ChatGPT. You can upload a lot of different file formats. The most common are PDF text files. It will read other documents. You can upload audio files. You can even upload video files provided that they meet um, certain parameters. And you can look at OpenAI's documentation on that. But fundamentally, you can use any type of file that you want to reference. So if you have training videos or training audio that you want to upload, the code interpreter is able to, depending on the model, it is able to read those and understand what happened on an audio file, et cetera. OpenAI has a open source transcription platform called Whisper, and it's able to take audio files and convert them into text that it can read. So the sky is really the limit. You're really only limited by ChatGPT or OpenAI's policies here. And some of these files get really inefficient to use. A couple weeks ago, we were working with a CSV file that was many, many gigabytes in size. And the code interpreter, pretty much everything on ChatGPT was not designed for reading file of that size. So we had a number of failures. So I'll just caution you, if it takes a long time to load on your computer when you open it, it's probably going to take a long time for ChatGPT to be able to deal with it. So uh, this is the document set. This is my beginning prompt. And the reason they came up with this little testing interface is because you need to test these before you hand these out. So we're going to start from there, and I'm going to hide this again, and we will just start testing it. So added a little bit of verbosity there, which is probably fine for your purposes. But this was based on the training data that I uploaded. I uploaded common prices, and these were fictitious. I uploaded, common prices or fixed prices for some of the various pricing questions that we hear on our phone calls. And if this is something that your dealership doesn't do, obviously don't upload pricing, or maybe you could upload word tracks that you want your agents to use when discussing pricing with customers. In general, the price of maintenance is probably something that most of our dealers do that. If a customer wants to know how much an oil change is, most of our dealers will allow the agents to discuss that pricing. We have other dealers that have integrations with the various tire providers. And so when they get the customer's VIN, they can put in that VIN and it will give them the tire options, and the dealer discusses those pricing. I was just at a dealer last week that has a direct relationship with their tires. And one of the things that they allow their agent to do, and one of the projects that I'll be working with them on, is every day they keep a spreadsheet of all of the tires for every year, make, and model that is within the last 15 years. They keep tire prices for those dealers or for those vehicles. And we're going to be building a custom GPT that allows an agent to just quickly, based on the spreadsheet that the dealer has with their distributor, quickly find the prices on each of those vehicles. So that's an interesting way that you can use these custom LLMs to make it much easier for your agent. Right now in their BDC, they simply just scroll through that tire until they find the year, make, and model for the customer's vehicle. Whereas using a custom GPT, they could just simply ask it. So that's a creative way of using an LLM to solve a problem that's costing their agents, a few seconds on every phone call. But when they're doing 100 to 300 a day, that's a lot of seconds that add up. So we've tested it with this. Let's try it some more. Customer is asking why they. And I don't remember if this was in the training document, but it was. So again, this is another way that you can use these custom GPTs. The agent didn't have to do any prompting. They don't have to know anything about these, all of these details, but we quickly and easily made it available to them. So we could say also, So here, and then again, it's going to remember my conversation. Oh, it says it right there in the prompt. I was going to ask, uh, what about rental cars? But it went ahead and it answered that question for me right here in the prompt. So, do you need to do more testing before you unleash these into the wild? I would say absolutely, I would if I were you. But it's one of those things where you can always have your agents give you feedback. I would run a few of these test prompts, try to give it questions. We'll do one last, give it a question that it might not know the answer to based on your training data. I don't believe this one was in there. Oh, it was. So um, it tells us that the document, it wasn't specifically in there, um, but uh, it's making an inference there. So with that said, we'll hit create. And here's where I can give some specificity on who I want to access this. So in this case, I'm probably going to go anyone with the link. I don't have any particularly private data in here. There's no customer data in here. Staff directory is probably generally available on your website, etc. But anyone with the link, I can put it in the GPT store, or I can make it accessible only to me. So we'll go anyone with the link. It's going to save it. And then here's the link that I can send out to all of my agents or all of my team leads, etc. And now they have a custom GPT that they can quickly and easily ask questions of. They can interact with like it was a manual. And you don't have to always be giving them the prompt or worry about whether what they're putting in there. You give them this link, and as long as they're using this, they're going to be able to interact with only the data that you provided. If I go back here, uh, I can see now under my GPTs, I've got uh, it listed here. I can go back into the store. I can edit it. I can delete it if I want that no longer to be available. Maybe I have a new version, etc. But that is the process of building your custom GPTs. Again, the goal of today is for you to take everything you've already learned about how to interact with them, how to provide them data, how to generate these prompts, etc. Put all of that into your pre-baked, you approved version of ChatGPT and give it access to your dealership personnel, your agents, etc., so that you control the information that they are using it for. That's all I have. Today's capstone, I hope, was helpful, but we'll open it up for any questions.
Oh, these are slick. These are really, really slick. I can totally see a need in every department of our business, let alone everyone on the call. So, a couple questions I have here as we wait for any others to come in. I know you mentioned that this is with the paid version of ChatGPT. I must have missed it, or you didn't. What is the cost to have these?
I pay $20 a month for the plan that I'm on. I don't know today if there are lower or I'm sure, I mean, I know there are higher plans, but I don't know what's available on the free version. I guess we could just maybe do some trickery here. Uh,
So it says it's still reserved for paying plans.
yep,
So 20 bucks a month then.
yep,
Okay.
yep. That's what I currently pay. As we know, Jake, the price of these is going to zero at some point. So that's why these companies are doing whatever they can to create differentiation. Custom GPTs is certainly a good way for them to do that. but I imagine that those prices come down and down and down.
Okay. And then secondly, so back on the model we just made, if you needed to update a policy or a something, a directory, are you starting from scratch or are you clicking the edit button then?
Yep. So if you needed to update any of these documents, you can just nuke it here under the knowledge section and upload its replacement.
Okay. And it kind of goes immediately then?
Yep. Yeah, you'll destroy it, you upload the new version, and then you'd hit update here, and it would automatically be reflective of those changes.
Awesome. Well, I had no other questions. I think you explained this super well. If we're gonna hang out another couple minutes, wait for other questions to come in. Um, yeah, I think you explained this super well. I see a ton of applications in our business, Peter. We need to build one for each department.
Yes,
So you're gonna do that and get that done today?
absolutely. I think I can have it done in the next hour, Jake.
Good, good. Good to hear. We're counting on you. So, okay. Um, Okay, a question coming in here. Any type of AI knowledge base or that AI knowledge drive coming to Volley anytime soon? Hopefully ChatGPT doesn't start with ads, uh, but which is totally true. Everything seems to go to advertisements. But Peter, you want
Um,
to answer that question?
Yeah, of course. So one of the roadmap features that we have for later this year, it'll be in likely Q4. We're doing some prototyping of it now, and it is the ability for our BDC managers, our dealers, et cetera, to do all of this within Volley. So as some of you know, our AI agent Carlie will be also deployed this year. Carlie is a digital assistant that is for both your customers. So she will be able to answer text messages, and in late this year, early next year, she'll be actually able to handle phone calls. But for now, Carlie will be a digital assistant that is available to you in Volley, and that should roll out later this year along with our knowledge base. And then your agents, instead of building these custom GPTs, your agents could just ask Carlie. So Carlie would be available right within the Volley user interface. A couple of the other features that we're working on with regards to the knowledge base are training. So Carlie will be able to help your agents train and do sort of mock conversations with your agents. That's a one of our 20 group features. It's a feature that came out of one of our recent 20 groups is doing the reverse of Carlie, effectively making Carlie into a nightmare customer and grilling your agents on their phone calls. So those are all being worked on currently by our AI team, and we are taking a little bit of a conservative approach at Volley where we think that AI as a human enabler needs to be pretty darn good for you to trust AI with your customer interactions. And so the knowledge base product and some of the Carlie conversation handling, we're taking our time. There's a number of stores that maybe on this call that have identified as beta customers or even alpha customers for Carlie once we get her out into the wild and our knowledge base out into the wild. I also know a number of you, I've talked with a number of you face to face in the recent weeks, months that are using, Microsoft SharePoint or Notion or other tools that you're paying for to house all of your data. And we are really anxiously looking forward to giving you a place in Volley for you to centralize all of that data and all of that information, since a number of you have to put it there anyway. Um, we also talked about, just quickly, I mentioned at the beginning, the tires example. Tire prices is a really creative way that we're going to be rolling this out for one dealer, helping them build a custom chat or custom GPT. But there are other dealers that have put their maintenance operations in custom GPTs that we've seen, as well as incentives, so that they can quickly, on the sales side, they can quickly answer questions on incentives, et cetera. So we've seen dealers do a number of creative things with these GPTs, and we're constantly working with our stores, even outside of Volley, to build these tool sets as kind of a way to figure out what's worth doing in Volley. So yes, knowledge base coming. Carlie will be your, hopefully she's a really awesome version of, I don't know, whatever you, Gemini or Siri or Cortana or whoever you want to call her. But that's the goal, is that she can help you use Volley as well as help your customers.
We have another question here for multi-store BDCs. Do you see value in creating a base for each dealer, or would you create one for the group? Do you think that would work just as well?
We have, I know of two stores, two of our accounts that are doing it each way. So one of our accounts, they have sections in their document, one for an Audi store, one for a Chevrolet store, one for a GMC store, et cetera. And then they have sort of their base policies, et cetera. They have those listed in a general section. So that works well. And I also have stores that have created a separate one for each endpoint. In the case of where you really get into the need to really be specific is on your super high end or your luxury brands that have very specific requirements. We've got some Bentley stores, Porsche stores, Mercedes stores that have very specific requirements for their customers. And that's where I see the benefit of having a store specific version, just because you leave nothing to chance with the LLM. Whereas if you don't have really a lot of those strange proclivities in your OEMs, then having one and then just denoting some special ones, for instance, working with a store right now on developing requirements for recalls. So for one of their OEMs, they have some very tight requirements for recalls. And so I'm working with them on developing specific prompt language to handle those, only those recalls in a larger, group wide GPT. So the answer is both. If you want to leave nothing to chance, then it's one per. If you are comfortable with with perhaps a loaner policy going across OEM lines where it doesn't matter, if you're a Ford store or Chevrolet store, the policies aren't probably so tight that it really is critical.
Well, good. Well, I think I think that's all the questions we have so far. I mean, thinking about it, obviously it's more work to maintain multiple individual ones. And agents need to have them pulled up to be able to, switch between the stores. So, though the data is probably better. So I guess there's a little bit of a trade-off of it, but well, good. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you all very, very much for joining. Peter, thank you very much for putting this all together. This has been a great series. Every time, I think, man, we need to be doing more of this on our team too to help us be even better. Good thing that you've promised to get these all done for us.
Of
So,
course.
yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you all, everyone, for joining. And we hope you all have a fantastic day. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions about this or anything else. And you can also check out the full series on our YouTube. This one will be posted later this week as well. So, or I guess it's already the short week, so maybe early next week when it'll be posted, but soon. So, thanks everyone and have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks.